It had been a typical Tuesday evening when I first sensed something was off with Adeline. We had just finished dinner, her favorite, a creamy mushroom risotto paired with a crisp Sauvignon Blanc. As we settled on the couch, the soft glow of the TV illuminating our living room, I noticed her distracted demeanor. She absent-mindedly scrolled through her phone, her eyes flickering with excitement that seemed misplaced. I brushed it off, attributing it to work stress, but a nagging feeling burrowed deep within me. The days leading up to that evening felt like a slow unraveling of the fabric of our marriage. Adeline had become increasingly consumed by her job, often returning home late, her skin glowing with an unfamiliar radiance. She would step out of the shower, the scent of floral shampoo clinging to her, and slip into a fitted dress that hugged her curves just right. I would catch her gazing at herself in the mirror, a hint of a smirk playing on her lips as she practiced her smile. It was intoxicating yet alarming, a dance of allure and secrecy that set my heart racing with unease. "Are you all right?" I finally mustered the courage to ask, breaking the silence that hung heavily between us. She turned her gaze towards me, her deep brown eyes glistening like polished mahogany. "Of course," she replied, her smile tinged with something I couldn't quite place. Was it guilt? "Just a long day at work, you know how it is." As the days melted into one another, I found myself increasingly drawn into my own thoughts, each moment filled with uncertainty. I had seen the way she looked at Ethan, her boss, during work events, the way her laughter would spill from her lips, light and airy, while his presence commanded the room. The chemistry between them was palpable, and the realization gnawed at me like a relentless hunger. One Friday evening, as the sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, I decided to surprise Adeline. I prepared a candlelit dinner, laying the table with her favorite wine and a decadent chocolate dessert. I envisioned her walking through the door, her tiredness melting away as she entered our little sanctuary. Instead, the door swung open to reveal her flushed cheeks and a sparkle in her eyes that sent alarm bells ringing in my head. "Hey! Sorry I'm late!" she exclaimed, embracing me. Her body felt warm and inviting, but there was an electric tension in the air. I forced a smile, hiding the turmoil within. As we ate, I noticed she kept glancing at her phone, biting her lip in that way I had come to recognize as her sign of anxiety. I tried to engage her in conversation, but her mind seemed elsewhere. The moment stretched, filled with silence that was punctuated only by the clinking of utensils and the gentle flickering of candlelight. Later, as we cleared the table, I caught a whiff of her perfume, a mix of jasmine and something musky that felt foreign. I couldn't help but ask, "Is everything all right at work? You seem different lately." She hesitated, her hands lingering on a plate before placing it in the sink. "It's just a lot going on. You know how demanding Ethan can be," she replied, her voice softening. A surge of jealousy coursed through me, and before I could stop myself, I blurted, "Are you sure it's just work?" The question hung in the air like a shadow, dark and foreboding. Adeline's eyes widened slightly, a mixture of surprise and something else. Was it fear? "What do you mean?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "I mean, you've been distant, and I can't shake this feeling that something's not right," I admitted, my heart pounding. She stepped closer, her expression shifting to one of understanding, and wrapped her arms around my waist. "You worry too much," she said, leaning in to kiss me softly. The warmth of her lips ignited a spark, a reminder of the passion we once shared. But the kiss felt different, laced with an undercurrent I couldn't identify. As I pulled away, I searched her eyes, trying to decipher the secrets they held. "Adeline, please. Talk to me," I pleaded, feeling the weight of our unspoken words pressing down on us. Just then, her phone buzzed on the counter, pulling her attention away from me. She hesitated for a moment before checking it, her face going pale. I felt a pang of anxiety, an instinctual dread creeping in. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "Nothing," she said too quickly, tucking her phone away. But I knew better. The tension had shifted, and I could sense the truth lurking just beneath the surface. That night, as we lay in bed, I turned towards her, my heart heavy with the weight of unspoken fears. I reached for her, wanting to feel her warmth against me, but she rolled away slightly, her back turned to me. The distance felt like a chasm growing between us, filled with unanswered questions and the haunting specter of betrayal. I closed my eyes, trying to push the thoughts away, but sleep eluded me. Little did I know, the next day would bring revelations that would shatter the fragile foundation of our marriage and plunge me into a world of heartache and desire, unraveling everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and the secrets we keep. The morning sun filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a soft glow in our bedroom as I lay awake, tangled in a web of uncertainty. Adeline stirred beside me, her hair tousled and framing her face like a halo. I watched her, longing to reach out and pull her close, to dispel the unease that had settled between us. But the lingering doubt held me back, a silent scream echoing in my mind. She turned towards me, her eyes half-lidded, the remnants of sleep still clinging to her. "Good morning," she murmured, her voice warm and inviting. I forced a smile, but inside my heart raced with the weight of what I suspected. "Morning," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. The air was thick with tension, and the unspoken words hung like a cloud over us. Adeline stretched, her body arching gracefully beneath the sheets. I couldn't help but admire her, the way her skin glowed in the morning light, her curves accentuated in a way that was both alluring and heart-wrenching. I yearned to lose myself in her, to forget the turmoil brewing in my chest. But the thought of Ethan lurked in the back of my mind, casting a shadow over my desire. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern lacing her tone. "You seem distant." "I'm fine," I lied, unable to voice the truth that simmered just beneath the surface. "Just thinking." "About what?" she pressed, her eyes searching mine, a flicker of apprehension crossing her face. I wanted to tell her everything, to reveal the storm brewing inside me, but instead I shrugged it off. "Just work stuff," I said, hoping to redirect her attention. She nodded, her expression softening, but I could see a flash of worry in her eyes. "I'm here if you need to talk," she offered, reaching out to place her hand on mine. The warmth of her touch sent a shiver down my spine, igniting a flicker of desire that battled with my unease. I leaned closer, inhaling her familiar scent, a blend of jasmine and something sweeter that made my head spin. "Maybe we can talk later?" I suggested, my voice low and husky, betraying the hunger that simmered beneath my surface. She nodded, her lips curling into a soft smile that made my heart race. In that moment, I could feel the tension melting away, the spark between us reigniting as I drew her into a kiss. It started gently, our lips brushing against each other, tentative and exploring, but soon it deepened. I felt her body mold against mine, her warmth enveloping me, erasing the fears that had taken root in my mind. As the kiss intensified, my hands found their way to her waist, pulling her closer. I could feel her heartbeat against my chest, a rhythm that matched my own. My fingers slid beneath the hem of her shirt, brushing against her skin, igniting a fire that sent shivers down my spine. "Lawrence," she breathed, breaking the kiss momentarily, her eyes glinting with something that felt both familiar and thrilling. "We shouldn't." But I didn't want to stop. Not now. Not when the urge to reclaim her felt so strong, to drown out the doubts that haunted me. I pressed my lips against hers again, my desire overwhelming. She melted into me, and for a fleeting moment, the outside world faded away, leaving only the two of us entwined in a passionate embrace. The moment lingered, filled with unspoken promises, until the ringing of her phone shattered the intimacy we had just shared. She pulled away, a mixture of annoyance and regret crossing her features as she glanced at the screen. I could feel my heart sink, a wave of anxiety crashing over me as I recognized Ethan's name. "Are you going to answer it?" I asked, my voice laced with tension. I have to," she said reluctantly, her fingers hovering over the screen. I watched her face fall as she tapped the call button, the warmth of our moment evaporating into the air like mist. "Hey, Ethan," she said, her tone shifting to one of professional detachment. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, jealousy flaring as I listened to her exchange polite pleasantries, her demeanor transforming before my eyes. As she spoke, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more beneath the surface, more than I could see. The thought of her in meetings with Ethan, laughing at his jokes, the intimacy of shared moments, made my blood boil. I had always trusted Adeline, but the specter of betrayal loomed larger with every passing second. She ended the call with a tight smile, her eyes meeting mine with an apologetic glint. "I'm sorry, I really have to go," she said, her voice softening as she reached for my hand. "I'll be home early tonight, I promise." I forced a smile, masking the turmoil raging inside me. "All right. Just be careful, okay?" Her expression shifted, a flicker of something deeper passing between us. "I will," she assured me, but I couldn't help but wonder if she was really aware of the danger lurking in the shadows of her professional life. As she gathered her things, my heart raced with a mixture of longing and dread. I knew I couldn't just sit back and wait for the inevitable to unfold. I had to confront my fears and get to the bottom of this growing distance between us. But for now, all I could do was watch as she slipped out the door, leaving me alone with the haunting uncertainty that had taken root in my heart. The day stretched on, each moment filled with unanswered questions and gnawing jealousy. I tried to focus on work, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Adeline and Ethan. The images of their interactions danced in my mind, each one more provocative than the last. What was happening behind the closed doors of her office? By the time evening rolled around, I was restless, pacing our living room like a caged animal. I had resolved to confront her, to demand the truth about her relationship with Ethan. But as I stood there, staring at the clock ticking away the seconds, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was teetering on the edge of a cliff. One small push could send me plummeting into a void of heartbreak. When Adeline finally walked through the door, I felt my breath catch in my throat. She looked stunning in a fitted dress that hugged her figure perfectly, her hair cascading over her shoulders in soft waves. There was an air of confidence about her that made my heart race, but beneath that was an underlying tension, a sense of guilt that hung heavy in the air. "Hey you," she said, her voice brightening as she entered the room. But I could see the flicker of apprehension in her eyes as she took in my expression. "Adeline," I began, my heart pounding as I prepared to dive into the conversation that had been building for days. But before I could find my words, she crossed the space between us, her arms wrapping around my neck. "I miss you," she whispered, her lips brushing against mine with a tantalizing softness. The kiss was electric, igniting the spark of desire that had simmered throughout the day. For a moment, the world around us faded, and it was just the two of us, lost in each other's embrace. But as much as I wanted to succumb to the passion, I knew I couldn't let it distract me from the truth that lay beneath. Pulling back, I searched her eyes, my own feelings of doubt and longing clashing in the silence. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but laced with urgency. She frowned slightly, pulling away just enough for me to see the flicker of fear in her gaze. "About what?" "About Ethan," I replied, my heart racing as I steeled myself for the conversation that would define our relationship. Her breath caught, and the warmth between us dissipated as the tension returned. I could see her weighing her options, searching for the right words. "Lawrence, it's not what you think," she started, but the doubt in her eyes was unmistakable. As we stood there, the distance between us felt insurmountable, filled with secrets and unspoken truths. I knew the moment was upon us, our lives, our love, hanging in the balance as we faced the reality of what lay ahead. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken words and emotions. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I prepared to dive into the depths of this conversation. Adeline shifted slightly, her gaze dropping to the floor, as if she were searching for the right words buried deep within her. "Lawrence, I promise you it's not what you think," she began, her voice trembling slightly. I took a step closer, narrowing the distance, needing to bridge the gap between us both physically and emotionally. "Then tell me," I urged, desperation creeping into my tone. "What is it? Because I can't shake this feeling that something's not right." She hesitated, her eyes flicking up to mine, searching for understanding. "It's complicated. Ethan is, well, he's been supportive of my work, and yes, we've been spending a lot of time together, but it's not." "Not what?" I interrupted, unable to contain the rising tide of jealousy within me. Not an affair? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like it could be heading that way. Adeline flinched at my words, and the pain in her eyes pierced through me. I didn't want to hurt her, but I felt like I was drowning in uncertainty, the weight of betrayal threatening to pull me under. I need you to trust me, she said softly, stepping closer again, her hands reaching out to cradle my face. The warmth of her palms against my skin sent a rush of conflicting emotions through me. Desire clashed with distrust, creating a whirlwind of feelings that left me reeling. Trust? I echoed, my voice strained. How can I trust you when I feel like I'm losing you to him? Because I love you, she insisted, her voice urgent, almost pleading. You are my husband. I would never throw away what we have for something so fleeting. As she spoke those words, I could see the sincerity in her eyes. The intensity of her gaze pulled at my heartstrings, reigniting the spark of connection that had been buried under layers of doubt. I leaned into her touch, feeling the heat radiating from her body, and in that moment, all I wanted was to lose myself in her once more. Without thinking, I pulled her closer, crashing my lips against hers. The kiss was desperate, filled with a mix of longing and fear. I could feel the heat rising between us, the tension that had built over the past few days igniting into a fire that threatened to consume us both. Her hands slid into my hair, pulling me deeper into the kiss, and I felt my resolve begin to crumble. I wrapped my arms around her waist, feeling the softness of her body against mine, and I couldn't resist the urge to lift her up slightly, her legs wrapping around my hips instinctively. As I walked us backward until my back hit the wall, she gasped softly, breaking the kiss for just a moment. Lawrence, we shouldn't, she murmured, but the heat in her eyes told a different story. The way her body pressed against mine was intoxicating, each curve fitting perfectly against me as if we were two pieces of a puzzle. I captured her lips again, this time more fervently, pouring all my fears and frustrations into the kiss. She tasted like the wine we had shared earlier, rich and intoxicating, and I craved more. Every kiss deepened the fire within me, making it impossible to focus on anything other than her. Please, I whispered between kisses, my breath hot against her skin. Let me forget everything for just a moment. She nodded, her eyes bright with a mix of passion and uncertainty, as if she too was struggling to reconcile our reality with the desire swirling between us. I need you, Lawrence, she breathed, her voice laced with urgency. I lowered her back down gently, our lips still brushing against each other, and my hands roamed over her curves, savoring the feeling of her body beneath my fingertips. As my hands explored her waist, her back, I could feel her warmth radiating through the fabric of her dress, igniting a fire within me that felt impossible to control. Adeline gasped as my fingers grazed the hem of her dress, the moment charged with a blend of desire and vulnerability. She stepped back slightly, her eyes searching mine, a hint of hesitation flickering across her features. What if we get carried away? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Then let's get carried away together, I replied, my voice low and gravelly, filled with a yearning that had been building for too long. With a deep breath, I lifted her dress, feeling her soft skin beneath my fingers, and the desire surged through me like electricity. I pressed her against the wall again, kissing her deeply as I reveled in the feeling of her body beneath my hands. Every kiss ignited the fire of passion that threatened to consume us both, erasing the doubts and fears that had plagued me. But as I explored her body, I couldn't shake the thought of what lay outside this moment: Ethan, the whispers of betrayal, and the fragile trust we were trying to rebuild. I knew we were standing on the edge of a precipice, and a single misstep could lead us into darkness. Suddenly, the sound of Adeline's phone ringing jolted us back to reality, the sharp tones slicing through the haze of desire that had enveloped us. She pulled away, her breath coming in quick gasps as she fumbled for her phone on the counter. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me as she glanced at the screen. It's him, she said, her expression shifting from arousal to apprehension in an instant. Ethan? I asked, my heart sinking as the tension in the room shifted back to something colder and more uncomfortable. I should answer, she said, her voice a mixture of obligation and dread. I watched as she took a step back from me, the warmth of our moment fading like a distant memory. No, Adeline, I protested, the urgency of my feelings bubbling to the surface. Please, let's just forget about him for a moment. But she hesitated, torn between her loyalty to her job and her desire to be with me. The phone continued to ring, a constant reminder of the reality waiting just beyond our fragile bubble. I have to, she said finally, her eyes filled with regret as she swiped to answer the call. Ethan, hey, she said, her voice shifting into the professional tone I had come to recognize, the warmth of our intimacy dissipating with each word she spoke. I felt a tightness in my chest as I turned away, frustration boiling within me. How could she go from being wrapped up in our moment to the cold professionalism she showed him? I paced the room, trying to push away the feelings of betrayal that were clawing at my heart. As she spoke, I could see the flicker of tension returning to her shoulders, the strain of balancing her life with me and her work looming heavily over us. I felt like I was watching the slow unraveling of everything we had built together, my heart aching with each passing second. Okay, I'll be there, she said finally, ending the call and looking at me with an apologetic expression that made my heart sink further. I have to go, she said softly, and I could hear the regret in her voice, but I felt anger bubbling up instead. Go? I echoed incredulously. After everything we just… Lawrence, please, she interrupted, her eyes pleading. This is important. I can't just ignore him. It's my job. But what about us? What about what we were just… I'll be home as soon as I can, she promised, her voice barely above a whisper as she stepped closer, reaching for my hand. We'll talk more tonight, I swear. I felt torn, caught between the passion we had ignited and the reality of her obligations. I wanted to scream, to pull her back and force her to choose me over him, but I could see the determination in her eyes, the commitment to her career that had always been a part of her. As she turned to leave, I felt a cold emptiness settle in my chest. Adeline, I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. She paused, glancing back at me, her expression a mix of longing and sorrow. I love you, Lawrence. I'm coming back, she assured me, but the distance between us felt insurmountable, the passion of our earlier moment eclipsed by the harsh reality of our lives. Just be careful, I said, my voice thick with emotion. As she stepped out the door, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was left standing there, alone with my thoughts, the lingering taste of her lips still on mine but overshadowed by the uncertainty of our future. The storm of emotions within me swirled, a mix of longing, jealousy, and a desperate need to reclaim what was slipping through my fingers. I knew I had to confront my fears and find a way to win back Adeline's heart before it was too late. As the door clicked shut behind Adeline, I felt an icy grip of loneliness settle over me. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt hollow, echoing the weight of her absence. I glanced at the clock. Time seemed to crawl by, each tick amplifying the tension that hung in the air. I tried to distract myself, flipping through channels on the television, but the shows blurred together, each a reminder of what I was missing. My mind kept drifting back to Adeline, the way she had looked in that fitted dress, the taste of her lips still fresh in my memory, the warmth of her body pressed against mine. I could still feel the heat radiating from her skin, the pulse of desire that had surged between us moments before Ethan's call had shattered our intimacy. Unable to bear the silence any longer, I wandered into the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of wine, hoping to calm my frayed nerves. The familiar taste of the Merlot flooded my senses, a comforting balm that momentarily dulled the ache in my chest. I leaned against the counter, lost in thought, replaying the day's events like a movie in my mind. Just as I took a sip, my phone buzzed, snapping me back to reality. I picked it up, half expecting to see Adeline's name, but it was a message from Rachel, my friend. Want to grab a drink? You sound like you could use one. I hesitated for a moment, then replied, Sure, I'll be there in a bit. I needed to clear my head, and maybe Rachel could help me put things into perspective. As I got ready, the image of Adeline's smile flashed through my mind, reminding me of the love we had built over the years. I felt a pang of guilt for seeking comfort elsewhere, but the turmoil within me needed an outlet. When I arrived at the bar, I found Rachel seated at a table in the corner, her dark hair catching the dim light. She looked up and offered a sympathetic smile as I approached. "Hey, stranger," she greeted, raising her glass in a light-hearted toast. "Hey," I replied, sliding into the chair across from her. "Thanks for meeting me." Rachel leaned in, her expression turning serious. "So, what's going on? You sounded off when you texted." I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on me. "It's Adeline," I confessed. "She's been distant lately, and I think she's involved with her boss." Rachel's eyes widened slightly, concern etched across her features. "Have you talked to her about it?" "I tried," I admitted, taking a sip of my wine. But she dodged the question. "I don't know what to believe anymore. Have you thought about confronting her?" Rachel suggested gently. "You deserve to know the truth." "I want to, but—" My voice trailed off as I considered the possibility of pushing too hard. What if I drove her further away? "I don't want to lose her, but I can't shake this feeling that something's wrong." Rachel nodded, understanding glimmering in her eyes. "Trust your instincts, Lawrence. If you think something's off, it probably is." We spent the next hour discussing everything: our jobs, mutual friends, and life's ups and downs. But no matter how much I tried to focus on the conversation, my mind kept drifting back to Adeline, to the way her lips felt against mine and the warmth of her body pressing into me. As the night wore on, I found myself loosening up a bit. Rachel suggested we play a game of pool, and I reluctantly agreed, hoping the physical activity would distract me. We made our way to the pool table in the back, the sound of balls clacking together providing a familiar rhythm. Rachel was a fierce competitor, her laughter echoing in the dimly lit room as she sank ball after ball into the pockets. I watched her, the way her body moved, the confidence in her stance. There was something undeniably attractive about her, but my heart was still tethered to Adeline. As we played, Rachel leaned over the table to take her shot, and I couldn't help but admire the curve of her back, the way her shirt hugged her figure. She caught me looking and shot me a playful grin, teasing, "You're not too bad at this game. Maybe I should keep you around." I chuckled, but the light banter felt hollow, a distraction from the chaos swirling in my mind. "I'm pretty sure I'm only here to distract myself from my problems," I admitted, leaning against the table, watching her carefully. "Problems?" she asked, her tone suddenly serious. "You can talk to me, you know." I hesitated, unsure if I should confide in her. "It's just Adeline and Ethan. I don't know how to navigate this situation." Rachel placed her cue stick down, stepping closer. "Lawrence, if she's cheating, you need to know. You deserve to be with someone who is fully committed to you." The intensity of her gaze caught me off guard, and for a moment, I felt a rush of conflicting emotions. "You're right," I said, but my heart ached at the thought of losing Adeline. "Let's not dwell on it tonight," Rachel suggested, her voice softening. "How about we just enjoy ourselves?" I nodded, grateful for the reprieve. We played several more games, the laughter between us mingling with the sounds of the bar, momentarily distracting me from my troubles. But as the evening deepened, the alcohol began to take effect, and the barriers I had built around my heart started to waver. After our last game, Rachel leaned against the bar, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Loser buys the next round," she challenged, her smile infectious. "Deal," I replied, my competitive spirit igniting. As I leaned in to place my order, I felt the heat of her body close to mine. She smelled amazing, a mix of vanilla and something floral that made my head spin. I glanced over my shoulder, catching her watching me with a playful glint in her eyes. The chemistry between us felt electric, and I found myself momentarily lost in her gaze. The bartender returned with our drinks, and as we clinked our glasses together, Rachel's laughter filled the air, drawing me in. It felt good to be here, to be seen and appreciated in a way I hadn't experienced in a while. But as I took a sip, the taste felt bittersweet, a reminder of the love I felt for Adeline that still clung to my heart. We moved to a quieter corner of the bar, the atmosphere shifting from lively chatter to intimate whispers. Rachel leaned closer, her voice barely audible above the noise. "You know, If you ever need someone to talk to, or more, she said, her eyes locking onto mine, I'm here. A rush of heat washed over me at her words, my mind racing. There was something intoxicating about the way she looked at me, the promise of something deeper lingering in the air. I could feel the weight of her gaze on me, stirring something within that had been dormant for too long. Rachel, I started, my heart pounding, but the words caught in my throat. The desire to reach out, to feel something more, clashed with my loyalty to Adeline. Before I could finish, Rachel closed the distance between us, her lips brushing against my ear as she whispered, You deserve to feel wanted, Lawrence. The heat of her breath sent a shiver down my spine, and I felt the walls I had built around my heart beginning to crack. I wanted to give in, to lose myself in this moment, but the thought of Adeline's face haunted me, reminding me of the vows we had taken. I pulled back slightly, meeting Rachel's gaze, searching for clarity. I can't. Adeline. I get it, she said, her voice softening, the disappointment flickering across her face. But don't forget that you deserve happiness too. As the night wore on, I found myself torn between two worlds, the magnetic pull of Rachel's warmth and the haunting memory of Adeline's absence. I knew I had to confront the truth of my feelings and the reality of my marriage. As we finished our drinks, Rachel squeezed my hand gently, a small gesture that sent a surge of warmth through me. Take your time, Lawrence. Just know that I'm here for you, she said, her sincerity piercing through the haze of confusion that enveloped me. I nodded, grateful for her understanding, but the path ahead felt murky. I left the bar that night with a mix of gratitude and sorrow, knowing I had to face the truths I had been avoiding. I couldn't let my heart linger in the shadows any longer. I needed to reclaim the love that had slipped through my fingers and confront the reality of my marriage with Adeline before it was too late. As I stepped out of the bar, the cool night air hit me like a splash of cold water, pulling me from the lingering warmth of Rachel's presence. I took a deep breath, trying to clear my mind. The night had been a whirlwind of emotions, and now, the streets felt strangely empty, echoing the chaos within me. I drove home slowly, each red light extending the anticipation of what lay ahead. The glow of streetlights cast shadows on the road, mirroring the uncertainty that loomed over my marriage. Would Adeline be home? What would I say to her? The knot in my stomach tightened with every thought of confronting her about Ethan. When I finally pulled into our driveway, the house was dark except for the soft glow of a lamp in the living room. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I opened the front door, my heart pounding in my chest. The familiar scent of home enveloped me, but tonight it felt different, tainted by the weight of unspoken truths. Adeline? I called out softly, but the house was silent. I moved to the living room, and there she was, curled up on the couch, her eyes fluttering open at the sound of my voice. Lawrence, you're home, she said, a hint of surprise in her voice. Her hair fell around her shoulders in soft waves, and I couldn't help but admire how beautiful she looked in her oversized sweater and leggings. It was a look I loved, casual yet effortlessly stunning. Yeah, I just got back from hanging out with Rachel, I replied, trying to gauge her reaction. A flicker of something crossed her face. Was it jealousy? Concern? Oh, she said, sitting up straighter. How was it? I hesitated, the weight of my earlier conversation with Rachel pressing on me. It was good. We just talked and played pool. Sounds fun, she replied, her tone light but her eyes searching mine, as if trying to read between the lines. I took a seat across from her, the tension in the room palpable. Adeline, we need to talk, I said, forcing myself to meet her gaze, steeling myself for the conversation that was long overdue. Her expression shifted, a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. About what? About us. About what's been going on with you and Ethan, I said, my voice steady. Her breath hitched slightly, and I could see the pulse of emotion swirling behind her eyes. Lawrence, she started, but I held up my hand, needing her to let me finish. I want to understand. I need to know if there's something more happening between you two. Adeline's expression faltered, and I could feel the tension tightening the air around us. I swear it's not what you think, she insisted, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan has been supportive of my work, But that's it. I promise. I wanted to believe her. I truly did, but the fear of betrayal lingered like a specter in the room. Then why do I feel like I'm losing you? I asked, my voice low and earnest. Because I've been overwhelmed, she confessed, her voice breaking slightly. Work has been intense, and I haven't been the best partner. But I love you, Lawrence. I need you to believe that. The sincerity in her eyes pulled at my heartstrings, but my mind was clouded with doubt. If that's true, then why did it feel like there was something more? I don't know, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe I've been seeking validation in all the wrong places. Her words struck a chord, and suddenly the walls between us felt less impenetrable. Adeline, if you need me, I'm here. But I can't stand by while you drift away, I said, my heart racing. She shifted closer, her knees brushing against mine, a spark igniting the tension that had built between us. I know I've been distant, and I'm sorry, she said, her eyes locking onto mine. But I need you to understand, I'm not cheating on you. I would never do that to us. In that moment, the longing I felt for her resurfaced, overwhelming my doubts. I leaned closer, our breaths mingling, the heat between us palpable. I want to believe you, I murmured, feeling the pull of desire drawing us closer. Then let me show you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Without thinking, I cupped her face in my hands and pressed my lips against hers, the kiss igniting a fire that had been smoldering beneath the surface. She responded instantly, her lips soft and eager against mine, sending a rush of warmth through my body. It felt like coming home. Our kiss deepened, each touch sending waves of electricity coursing through me. I felt her hands slide up my arms, wrapping around my neck as she pulled me closer, her body pressing against mine. The world around us faded, leaving only the two of us entwined in a passionate embrace. As the kiss continued, I could feel her warmth enveloping me, igniting a primal desire I had longed for. My hands found their way to her waist, pulling her closer, feeling the softness of her body against me. The weight of our earlier conversation faded into the background, replaced by an urgency to reclaim the intimacy we had shared. Adeline, I breathed, breaking the kiss momentarily, my forehead resting against hers. I need you. Now. She nodded, her eyes dark with desire, and in that moment, we both knew we were crossing a threshold, a commitment to rediscovering each other amid the chaos of our lives. I pulled her into my arms, capturing her lips once more as we stumbled backward, landing softly on the couch. The soft fabric enveloped us, and I lost myself in the sensation of her body against mine. Our kisses grew more fervent, her hands tangling in my hair as I explored the curve of her waist, every touch igniting the fire within me. Lawrence, she gasped, breaking the kiss for just a moment as I trailed kisses down her neck, savoring the taste of her skin. We shouldn't. Let's not think about anything else, I urged, my breath hot against her collarbone. Just us right here. As I continued to kiss down her neck, she melted into me, surrendering to the moment. I felt her hands sliding beneath my shirt, her fingers tracing the contours of my chest, each touch sending shivers of desire through me. I could feel her heart racing beneath her palm, mirroring the urgency coursing through my veins. Lawrence, I've missed this, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I've missed us. I captured her lips again, pouring all my longing and frustration into the kiss. We lost ourselves in each other, the world outside fading away as we explored the depths of our connection. The passion that had been simmering between us erupted, a wildfire consuming everything in its path. As we tumbled deeper into our intimacy, I felt the weight of the day's worries slipping away. With every kiss, every touch, I reclaimed the love we had almost lost. We were two souls, navigating the complexities of our lives, but in this moment, all that mattered was the heat between us and the promise of rediscovering our love. Time lost meaning as we surrendered to each other, the world outside becoming a distant memory. With every heartbeat, I knew we were beginning to mend the fractures in our relationship, building a bridge to a more profound understanding of what it meant to love and be loved. In that embrace, with Adeline wrapped in my arms, I felt the possibility of healing, of reclaiming our connection, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, we could emerge from this stronger than before. As the heat of our passion enveloped us, I felt a profound sense of clarity wash over me. In those moments of intimacy, it was as if the universe had realigned, allowing us to reconnect on a deeper level. Every kiss, every touch, pulled us back to the essence of what we had built together, the laughter, the shared dreams, the love that had once seemed unshakable. Adeline's hands explored my body with a newfound urgency, each caress igniting sparks of desire that coursed through me. I kissed her with fervor, pouring all my longing into every movement, determined to reclaim what had almost slipped away. Her warmth against me felt like a balm, soothing the doubts and fears that had plagued my heart. "Lawrence," she whispered breathlessly, her voice a mixture of passion and vulnerability. "Promise me that we'll be honest with each other moving forward." I pulled back slightly, searching her eyes, the weight of her words resonating deeply within me. "I promise," I replied earnestly. "No more secrets. We need to communicate, to really understand each other." Her eyes glistened with emotion, and I felt a rush of tenderness as I brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I love you," she said softly, her voice thick with sincerity. "I don't want to lose what we have." "I love you too, Adeline," I assured her, my heart swelling with a mixture of relief and hope. "I want to fight for us." In that moment, the barriers that had once divided us crumbled away, replaced by a shared understanding that we were both committed to navigating the complexities of our relationship. I leaned in, capturing her lips once more, a promise of devotion sealed with a kiss. As the intensity of our kisses deepened, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. The worries that had plagued my mind faded into the background as we surrendered to the rhythm of our bodies, lost in a dance that felt both familiar and exhilarating. The world outside ceased to exist as we explored the depths of our connection, every caress, every sigh weaving a tapestry of love and longing. In that cocoon of intimacy, I could feel the threads of our relationship strengthening, binding us together in ways that felt both powerful and reassuring. As the night wore on, we held each other close, the warmth of our bodies mingling in the soft glow of the lamp. I could hear the steady beat of her heart against my chest, a comforting reminder that we were in this together. The doubts and fears that had once loomed large seemed trivial in the face of the love we shared. Eventually, we lay entwined on the couch, the silence between us filled with unspoken understanding. I brushed my fingers along her arm, tracing the delicate lines of her skin, savoring the intimacy of the moment. Adeline looked up at me, her eyes bright with affection. "Thank you for tonight," she said softly, her voice a soothing balm to my soul. "I needed this." "Me too," I replied, my heart full as I tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I think we both did." As we settled into the quietude of our surroundings, I realized that the journey ahead would require effort and commitment from both of us. But in that moment, I felt hopeful that we could rebuild our love stronger than before, armed with honesty and understanding. With Adeline by my side, I knew we could face any challenge that came our way. The night may have been filled with uncertainty, but it also promised a renewed sense of connection. And as I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, knowing that we were both ready to embrace the future, hand in hand, united in love and resilience.